Today on The Riff, we get to listen to a masterclass that we hosted with Taylor McCall and Lance Linderman on why your work matters.
So if it wasn't caught, I'm Lance Linderman. I'm all the way from Phoenix in the desert, and it is a lot hotter, but it is, as you guys know, also very dry. I couldn't believe how many rivers I saw just from the drive from St. Louis over to here is pretty incredible. To make a connection though, kind of the tribe.
No, I want to address that. We're driving here and we'd be deep in conversation, and all of a sudden I'd lose Lance for 20 seconds. And I go, "Hey buddy, are you listening to what I'm saying?" And every time he had seen a river and he just gazed off and he's like, "Sorry man, I don't ever get to see these bodies of water."
We don't have rivers over there. But I do feel a connection here because I'm actually originally from the Midwest, so I'm pumped to be back. I moved to Phoenix in '99, so it's been a while, but I grew up in Iowa. I kind of come from we got some Iowa people.
One guy.
So y'all know about ham balls and pork chops, anybody? No? Do they do like casseroles here after church that are heavily mayonnaise based? Because that's definitely how we grew up. I'm also kind of a part of the Anabaptist or Mennonite world. Any Jedediahs out there? No? No, man. Okay, just me. I wish I didn't bring that up. Let's just forget that
was awkward.
entirely. One of the things about our faith that I'm actually seeing from the tribe that I kind of come from that's very similar to here is that we believe in a community hermeneutic. And what I mean by that is that it's not just the person at the front interpreting the scripture for everybody else, but it's actually a conversation for the entire body to unravel and unpack. And that's something that it's a tenet of the Mennonite kind of faith. And so seeing that you guys are encouraging your different campuses to text in questions is really a marker of the exact same thing. So I feel an affinity with that you guys would be a part of the conversation. And as Taylor said, or not Taylor, Preston, thank you, said, I'm getting a little foggy up here because I'm nervous. We do love the Q&A because it helps us understand where you guys are at and what you guys are thinking about. So a confession just up front. When we think about, and this is something that's kind of subtly caught in church, and just to be honest, is that sometimes I'm tempted to leave my Christianity to the Sunday experience. But we all know that our faith and where we do our faith is outside of just the Sunday experience. And so again, the title of this conference is super appropriate because we're talking about investing in the unconvinced, and also that your work matters. And so just kudos to the church here and to your guys' body for being interested in that conversation. Because sometimes what happens is, at least in our world, is that we're tempted to believe that job is just for the pastors or just for the speakers. But in reality, there is no difference between the pastor and the speaker and us. Our call is to live out our faith in the everyday works that we do. And so it's not a job just for our pastors. Taylor, do you want to help us get going on? We've got a little story we were going to share about.
Well, I want to say something about that because I agree with Lance that there is not a difference, but that is based on the conviction and the context and the whole idea that we really want to share with you. We wrote a book. Lance wasn't a part of the actual writing, but he was definitely a part of the story. The book is called Brave Cities. And the idea behind the book is simply put, what if we looked all the way back to who God intended his people to be? I'm going to make an assumption that the majority of you here either have a relationship with the God of the Bible, you're curious about the God of the Bible, or you are here to prove that the God of the Bible is not real and you're a skeptic, and hopefully we can convince you that he is, because we love him and we follow him. And he's been telling this story since the beginning of an economy that's different than the economy that we see around us. That economy operates on certain virtues and values that come from a place that the scriptures call the kingdom. So we call them kingdom ecosystems. And so when we say that your work matters, we're talking about that specifically in the context and through the lens of the story that God's been telling since the beginning. That the people that identify themselves with Yahweh, with the Creator God, they have a purpose here. And the purpose isn't necessarily to work for Prime or to be an air traffic controller or to be a teacher or a surgeon or an entrepreneur or a realtor. But their purpose is to use whatever skills and gifts and passions, and even if it really doesn't matter. Like we call them tables, so just keep that word in your mind as we kind of navigate tonight. But these tables that we sit at throughout our life, when we're young, it might be school. When we're in our 20s and 30s, we might jump from table to table. And then we find what our culture calls a career, which is really just a lifelong table that we sit at, and we decide to use our gifts and our skills at that table. I would argue that table doesn't really matter, that we're not necessarily called to a specific table. But what we are called to, and this is the important part, and this is what Lance was saying, is we're called to carry a specific scent. We're called to carry an aroma that ignites the senses of those who encounter that table. So if it is, I don't know what Prime is. I just know my sons drink a drink called Prime. But if it is Prime or an air traffic controller or a teacher or a surgeon or a realtor or an entrepreneur, we're curating those tables in such a pastoral way that when someone comes in contact with whatever we're doing, they smell something different. And I want you to think about, as I kind of pass the ball back to Lance, like, have you experienced this before? My guess is you have here. You come in a place like this and people welcome you and they smile, and you hear music that's quite enchanting, and it draws you to something spiritual. There's small groups where you sit and you talk about your life and you pray for each other. And that's an aroma that's really unique, and you want to come back to it. But what I realized in 2008 is that I couldn't keep that aroma in spaces like this anymore. That I had the ability to start and create and curate spaces outside of just these walls, not solely outside of these walls, but outside of just these walls. And I needed personally to step outside of these walls and start developing those spaces so that when people would walk in to a coffee shop or a laundromat or a barber shop or a gym or a pub or a basketball program or a house cleaning company or an event center, whatever, they would smell something spiritually. They would encounter something where they would say, I want to come back to this place, this space, this neighborhood, and I want to experience this again. And what Preston was saying about me is, he said, you used to be a pastor, right? And I was like, oh no, I'm still a pastor. I'm a pastor every day in my neighborhood, in my restaurant, in my rental properties, in the other businesses that I'm working with, in my consulting work. I'm a pastor everywhere I go now. For a long time, I was just a pastor in walls like this. And I personally had to step outside of these walls to understand what a lot of you experience every day in getting up, crack of dawn, grinding all day, working to make a buck, to put food on the table. How can I be a pastor in those spaces? And that's what I've spent the last 20 years working on.
Yeah. And so sometimes you hear a lot of people talk about the sacred secular divide, but in reality, there's actually no sacred secular divide unless you make it. Your job is holy. Our jobs, wherever they are, is holy, and it's God's work. Somebody earlier, I think it was Preston's wife, she's an accountant. God's territory is your spreadsheets. It's your service, it's your soil, it's your sales, it's whatever it is. It's another space where we can create tables that people can sit at and smell the aroma of Christ and meet Jesus. And it's just so encouraging that we're in a church that believes that vocation and calling isn't just for the people at the front, but it's for all of us here. And so as we kind of unpack our story, well, before we unpack this story, there's a story that we kind of told in Florida that I think is really helpful at catching kind of the spirit of Jesus a little bit. So I'm going to let you share. I'm going to pass it right back to you.
You want me to share that right now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right, so I'll set the stage for this. I think that the importance of this story for me is that we can see through this lens that we're trying to set up, this kind of foundation of not only is your work holy, but your work is connected to an ancient story. In a sense, if you know the scriptures at all, a story that sort of started right after the fall, where we were told that we were going to work a cursed ground and have to sweat and plant our food and work for our food and toil for the rest of our lives. But this toil we learned all throughout the next books and letters that's in this thing we called the Bible, that this toil was and could be holy. It not only could be holy, it could be mission. Maybe some of you have heard the term business as mission before. It's kind of this church term where we teach specifically overseas missionaries to start a business almost like drug cartels do as a front. And really, they're just there to be missionaries. So they might earn a little co-vocational money through their business, but they're really just there as missionaries. And what we would say is that that's probably the wrong paradigm to look through, or at least an incomplete paradigm, that it's more that your business is your mission. Because good news changes all the time. Y'all know the word gospel means good news. Evangelism is heralding good news, right? Good news can change. It doesn't mean that good news is not consistent, but it can be different for different people, all leading to a central idea, person, and king named Jesus. But sometimes you start at good food. Like those hamburgers, I didn't eat lunch today. When I smelled those hamburgers when I pulled up, that was good news for me. Now, had I walked up and immediately all of you started trying to convert me to Jesus, that would not have been good news to me, because I needed a hamburger first. So the scripture actually says that. It says that if you go to someone who is hungry and poor and underfed, and you tell them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, you've done no good. So it can actually not be good news sometimes to say things out of order or to do things out of order. So what we're saying is everything we do, every work that we toil at can be good news for those around us and can create an aroma. I said it like this recently. I did an interview for a magazine and they said, what is good news to you? And I said, well, if a blind man smells bacon, he doesn't know what it is, but he knows that aroma. And the moment his eyes are opened, let's say he's in the kitchen with grandmama while she's cooking up some bacon, and his eyes are miraculously open, because that's what happens when Christ gives us sight to see the aroma that is him. He knows immediately what bacon is. He sees it because he smelled it before.
Or mayonnaise-based casserole.
Yeah. So good news happens in every space. And if you don't know this, attendance in these spaces are declining at an alarming rate, faster than we've ever seen in history. Just since 2019, fact check me, but I'm pretty sure my numbers are fairly accurate. It went from around high 60% of church attendance in the U.S. to now this year, it's below 11% of church attendance in the U.S. but we're connecting the good news and the aroma of Jesus in all these spaces, all over the country, all over the world, that we're creating to be the aroma of Jesus.
Something I would just say about that statistic from probably the Barna Group or something, it feels alarming, but in reality, I would say that 100% of the people in our country, or almost 100% of the people in our country, are actually in fellowship, in communion, and in relationship with the church every day. It feels like we're losing a hold because we're thinking about it through the lens of Sunday only. But I know from just even the name of this, that this church really cares to move people outside of these walls. And so our work is super holy. It's the hope of the world.
Yeah. So I'll set the stage for a story that's in our book, Brave Cities. And it's a real story that happened to me and my family. 3 years ago, this summer, we decided that we wanted to take a trip out west. Now, I'm originally from Alabama. I grew up in South Alabama, and then I spent many years in Birmingham, Alabama, where we started doing this work. And 5 years ago, I moved to St. Louis. I spent some time out west in my 20s doing whitewater rafting, river guiding, and mountaineering and things like that. And I wanted my children to get to see. I have 5 young kids, and I wanted them to get to see some of the beauty of the West Coast. So we started looking into how we were going to make this happen. You can't fly a family of 7. It's just way too expensive. You can't drive a family of 7 because you'll drive off a bridge on purpose. How are we going? You can't rent an RV because it's $50,000 to drive that far. So what we decided is we bought an RV. And I did the math. I've started a lot of businesses. So I got creative and I was like, if I buy this RV and then I rent it the whole year and just use it in the summer, it'll pay for itself. Which, by the way, side note, it has. So you guys should try it. So we bought an RV and we loaded up and we decided to go west. And during the drive, we're making stops along the way. It's a great trip. I mean, it really felt like a trip of a lifetime. We're talking with our kids. At the time, I had a 13, 11, 8, 6, and 4-year-old, something like that. And we're all just talking about our goals for the trip. What do we want to see? What do we want to do? What do we want to experience? Lindsay, my wife, is like pulling things up on the computer, showing them all the places we're going to go. And I told them I've read and I've heard and I've heard stories of people that experience this. And what I want to do and what I want to see and what I'm kind of, I got a hankering for is I want to come in contact with a grizzly bear in the wild. Now, my 4-year-old daughter was not super excited about that idea because she had heard that grizzly bears like to kill daddies. So she didn't want us to come in contact with a grizzly in the wild. But I really thought this would be amazing. I, of course, had my bear spray and we had our dog. And if anybody's going to die, it's going to be our dog. So we'll be okay. We'll spray the bear, we'll run away. But I wanted to see a bear in the wild. I just thought this could be the one chance I get to, come in contact with a grizzly. And we get out to Yellowstone National Park, finally, after probably a week and a half of traveling. And the crazy thing about this trip is we didn't know if we were going to come in contact with a bear or not. We actually, along the way, we ran into multiple people who were coming back from Yellowstone or what's the other one even further west? Yosemite. And several people told us they either saw a bear or they met people that saw a bear. One woman was telling us what to do when you see a bear, which sounds like a terrible idea, like to, scream at the bear and try to scare the bear. And one woman told us to hold our kids in front of us. Terrible advice, felt like to me. But nonetheless, the bear thing kept coming up and kept coming up. As soon as we pull into Yellowstone, the day we pull in, we're seeing people excited that they had just seen a bear and it ran off into the woods. And I was like, oh man, we just missed one. Like, we're for sure going to see a bear. And we kind of continue this, we're there, we're seeing everything. We see the elk and we see the buffalo everywhere. We see the gray wolf. I mean, we see all the stuff you want to see at Yellowstone, but no bear. And that's kind of the idea behind it, is these grizzlies are rather elusive and you're told stay away from them. And one night when we were sleeping, one actually came into our campground and got some people's food. So we missed that one. And we're 4 days in and we hadn't seen a bear at all. Okay, so I'm going to finish the story, but I want you to try to catch the imagery of this story. All of this really happened, and then I think Lance and I are going to kind of start wrapping up. But this is part of what we want to inspire you with, is our last day there, our last night there. We're leaving the elk village. If you've ever been there, there's this area of Yellowstone where there's hundreds of elk. It's really amazing. And we're driving back to our campsite. Yellowstone is massive, so our drive's like 40 minutes. And we're passing this kind of legendary meadow in Yellowstone called Hayden Valley. And as we're coming over the hill, about to pass Hayden Valley, we see just a young boy kind of jumping, throwing his hands up, like celebrating, almost like he was worshiping or something. Just so excited. I see him first, and then I say, "What's going on?" Then my wife sees him. The kids kind of walk up to the front of the RV. They see him. And then as we're coming, he's still 600 yards from us. As we're coming up to Hayden Valley, we see a car pull in, then we see another truck pull in. And I just am like, oh my God, I think they see a bear. I think there's no way people would be pulling in like this for buffalo, because they're everywhere. So we get closer, and there it is. Hayden Valley, I don't know what it is. I don't know how to determine acreage from sight, but I bet it's 60 acres. It's massive. But you can see the whole thing. It's just beautiful. Little house on the prairie, beautiful. And there's parking alongside the road in the front of it, right on the shoulder. And we pull in, and I mean, it had to be 4 football fields out, which my youngest daughter was happy about that. There's this massive mama grizzly bear and her 2 little cubs. And they're kind of walking towards us, but they're so far away and there's so many people. There's really nothing to be afraid of. And I'm telling you, we have pictures of this. Within 5 minutes, there's 200 people, 300 people. I mean, it's getting almost obnoxious, the amount of people that are pulling in to get a glimpse at this bear in the wild. So we stay there for a bit. It gets a little crowded, and we saw it. We decide, let's go back. This is what we wanted. So we hop back in the camper, and we head back to our campsite. We go to sleep. It's a great night. We leave. The next day, we're coming out of the back of the park. So we came in this front entrance. Now we're exiting out of the back, heading to our next destination. And right as we pull out of the park, and I'm sure this is on purpose, we see this beautiful hand-carved sign that says, "Bear and Wolf Exhibit, 6 miles." And I just kind of look at my wife and I said, "You see that?" And she laughs, and I said, "We could have just done that." And she said, "Well, let's do it." And I said, "Okay, let's do it." So we go to the Bear and Wolf Exhibit, and sure enough, we pull in, and we all have to, pay to go in, and $15 a pop, which didn't feel worth it to me at the time, but I was willing to do it. We all wanted to see another bear, and we go inside the Bear and Wolf Exhibit. All 7 of us, we walk up, and I mean, we are from me to you guys, to these massive grizzly bears with a big kind of chasm in between us that there's no way they could get across, like a moat almost. And we're just watching them kind of wrestle, play with each other. There's also some wolves, some gray wolves right over here. And as I'm standing there kind of looking at the bear, or multiple bears, I notice within moments, First of all, no one's really there. There's a couple people standing beside me. Everyone else is like walking around. There's kids over on a playground. And within a couple moments, I noticed that my kids are disinterested. And they're walking over to the playground to do something that they think is more interesting. And then, I see somebody standing, had to be 30 feet from this bear, just texting, looking at Instagram or something. And I'm perplexed. I'm just kind of watching this, and I'm even like, yeah, this is cool, but it's different. It's different than what we experienced last night. And we had to have been there at Hayden Valley for 45 minutes, and no one was leaving, and everyone just kept coming. So we get back in the vehicle and we leave, and I'm driving and I'm thinking about this experience, and I realized that this is what I've seen for 30 years of my life, is somewhere in my journey, I encountered the wild Jesus. I encountered the one that's out there roaming, sort of hard to find, right? He says, you can find me if you seek for me with your whole heart. But I'm not always that easy to find. And I encountered him. I remember when I really encountered him. In my entire life, I've been looking for him since. And I find him in places, usually near the poor, near the hurting, usually near people that are obsessed with him, that just want to be with him. He kind of presents himself in those spaces. But about 5 years into my journey, someone told me it's a lot easier if we just take like a version of Jesus, domesticate him, and put him in an exhibit. And then we just come to that exhibit every week, and that's where we find Jesus. But haven't you felt even at times that Jesus is a little less interesting than the one you encountered in the wild somewhere throughout your life? And what I would say to you guys, I'll end with this, because I could talk about this story for 20 more minutes. But what I would say is, yes, we can find Jesus anywhere. But we were all told somewhere along the way that the main place we'll find him is in places like this. And I think that is true, that we will. But he's also out there. He's in the wild. He's in the unknown places. He's in our work spaces. He's in the highways and the byways. He's in the margins of your city. And when you want him and when you seek for him with your whole heart, you'll find him in those spaces. I think these spaces are really made more for us to come and rest together from a minute from the seeking, from the pursuit, the obsession, and the curating of the aroma of Christ. And then we come and we remind each other. That's why Jesus said, as often as you come together, remember me. But then we go back out and we look for him. We find him. We tell others about him. We invite them to the table to discover him too. And that's kind of what we wanted to the story we wanted to give you to reflect on.
I want to leave you guys with this. We brought a couple of photos, and I'll move through them quick because I know we're running out of time here in a little bit. But for us, the way that we kind of found Jesus in the wild, if you will, we actually started in a traditional kind of vocation. Both of us, I actually still am a part of the church that I've been with it for the last 12, 13 years, Axiom. This sits directly across from Axiom. This comes later in the story, but I'll tell you now. This is Jefferson House. As we began, we started with a coffee shop called Driftwood, actually. I don't know if there's a slide with a coffee shop up here. But when we started the church, we had a coffee shop, and it was a non-Christian coffee shop. It's called Driftwood, and that was important because we wanted it to be an inclusive space, a space where anybody could come to, whether they were a believer or not. And we found so many pathways for people to even come into our body through that, which was just incredible. That's Driftwood right there. After Driftwood, we opened a chicken joint there. I think there's a picture of a sandwich. If you're hungry, I'm sorry. That's a Nashville hot style chicken sandwich. That's a restaurant called Twist Hot Chicken. All of this, by the way, under a company called Banquet, which is based off of the Luke passage. That's about inviting everybody in. How do we create convergent spaces that are for everyone? And so we started Twist Hot Chicken. This is all kind of happening in the general area. I don't know what the next photo is. Let's see what else we got here. This is the gathering space that we meet at, the venue that we meet at. We host concerts there, government meetings there, all sorts of different events happen in this space. This is some of our community. That's actually my twin brother up at the front. You can't really see him, but he kind of does a lot of the teaching and preaching on Sundays there. What else do we got up here? Oh, there's the chicken restaurant on the inside. I already talked about that one. There's Taylor right there and Hugh. They're leading a kind of workshop with about 50, 60 artists from our community. We host these things called sacred parties where people come in from the community, different leaders and entrepreneurs and creators and artists. And we just get together and we talk and we dream together. And this is in a future site of an art gallery that's now in downtown. It's been built since then. There's a deli being built on the opposite end of that. So it's like a deli space for the town as well. This is all, by the way, we're staying on C Street. Is that what it is? C Street? It's a lot like C Street, but there was no businesses when we moved in. It was a total ghost town for 20 years. This is the pub. That is actually me standing right there. I just noticed that I'm in that photo. I look a little thirsty. So this is the pub that we started. If you were to ask the people in our church community, how did you find Axiom? That's the name of our gathering space. Almost half of them would say, well, we met the pastors because we go to their bar. They own a bar. And so we own a bar down there. And so a whole bunch of different tables and meeting spaces where we've been able to connect with, be in the wild and get to know people. And it's really turned into a beautiful place where not only have we been discipled, but we've been able to help disciple others. And similarly, and there's one more, there's a kingdom, I think it says, it's like a drawing. I don't know if you guys got that one. Is that? That's a bunch of logos and businesses that we own, but not that one.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. These are more spaces we're working on.
Keep going. Is that it?
Yeah, oh, okay. Shoot.
You didn't send it to him.
I did. I don't know where it went.
So there was one other photo that kind of shows the interconnected network of businesses and homes and different initiatives. And we talk all about this in our book, Brave Cities, of how, let's just say you guys we did a workshop together and we got out those big nerdy Post-it notes and put them all over the walls here. And we wrote down all of what you're doing, your occupations, where you work, where you go to school even. I noticed there's a few universities here. And we just we started to dream and kind of architect how we could interconnect these works to start praying for each other, thinking about each other. Who are you interested in at your office or your plant or where you're working, and in kind of exposing the aroma of Christ to, and how does that connect with what these guys are doing over here? And then how can we start using our resources and our skills to maybe start other good things in our city? Because the scripture says that where the righteous prosper, the city does rejoice. The whole city does rejoice. And we think that the church can actually act as that kingdom economy that's just barely, as much as they can, pushing back the forces of evil, the oppressive powers that are trying to keep people from the liberation or the liberty that is in Christ. And we're saying, no, come into the kingdom city and experience the love of God here.
Okay, so they talked a lot about the banquet, and I know a banquet is like lots of tables and stuff. Go a little bit more into how people's workspace is a table.
Just go more into that.
Yeah, more into that. So obviously, church, like a church service, I
have a great personal example or a personal story.
Does it involve a bear?
No, and this would. Being in this space is really meaningful, because what we would say, and when you read our language or when you hear us talk, a lot of people that are very connected to the traditional church have a hard time not thinking we're saying that traditional church is bad. But that's actually not true at all. What we're saying is this place that we're in right now is not a church. It's not, guys. I don't know if you know that, but it's just not. It's a building. We would call it a table within the ecosystem. We would also call our coffee shop just as sacred as this space. And I was blown away when I started my first cafe in 2010, how much more I preached the good news of Jesus than I was the 10 years prior when I was doing it for a vocation. It felt like every day I was having conversations about the hope that is in Jesus. And then I started a landscaping company because we wanted specifically men who were looking for easy entry job work that didn't require a tremendous amount of know-how and skills, like that we could start them at the bottom and they could learn. That now, every day through that company, I was having Jesus conversations, and I was seeing people baptized, and I was seeing people wanting freedom in Christ. Then we started a house cleaning company because we wanted the same thing for women. Then we started a daycare center. Then we started a barber shop, and we started 25, 30 plus small businesses over the past 15 years, all of them being tables where, like I said, I'm going to keep using this phrase, the aroma of Christ is being spread at this place, at this table. And they're not just businesses. There are homes, there are justice works that we're doing in our city. If you want to go and kind of take a grill to a local park in maybe a lower income neighborhood and just start cooking out on Sundays, inviting people to come have a meal. That's the aroma of Jesus. That's a justice work.
And even if you're not an entrepreneur or a business starter like us, maybe you're an accountant or you work a 9 to 5 or whatever it might be, you get to be the aroma of Christ, and there's a table that you're setting everywhere that you go. And I full-heartedly believe that. I used to tell when I was like 19, there was this girl I was trying to impress. I told her that I was an accountant. I really just worked the cash register at the Mr. Good Sense. But
we have a Mr. Good. Wait.
Yeah.
You know what Mr. Good Sense is?
Bro, Arizona to Springfield. Let's go. We sub shop, right? Okay, same thing?
Comic book shop here.
Oh.
No, it's a sub shop. It's a sub shop.
He brought that up because I own a comic book store too. But it was there at the cash register that I learned how to be the aroma of Christ, how to have hospitality for people, how to welcome them in, how to help them eat their sandwich, get that sensible sub, which was so delicious. So whatever it is that we do, we get to be the aroma of Christ. We get to set a table, and sometimes we get to help in working and creating the tables that we're setting as believers. We're a band of missionaries. We would say that the churches, the group, the communities that we're a part of, we're a band of missionaries. There's about 40 to 50 in Alton. We've got about 250 in our kind of band of missionaries, and we're honoring and highlighting what everyone is doing.
But this is really important, guys. For those of you that are inspired by this, or you're finding life in this part is, maybe we could talk about this a little bit, but a kingdom ecosystem is not a collective of businesses. That's not the idea. The idea is it's a covenanted life together. If we just tell you go and be a light in your work space, my assumption is a lot of you have tried to do that. And you're like, okay, I want to do it. I get up today. I got to pray.
We have questions about that, and I'll ask you.
Okay.
Yeah, but keep going.
No, so it's like, it's the kind of, what do you call it? Like just the vicious cycle of, okay, I need to pray this morning. This guy's getting on my nerves. Pray for him. Try not to curse at him. Don't hope he dies, try to think good thoughts, virtue. Okay. Be a light. That's not what we're talking about. There's hints of Jesus in that, but we're talking about all of us kind of making a covenant together is we're going in as missionaries. This work at Prime or air traffic control or teaching or accounting or whatever it is, that's not our mission. We're using that as a tool to connect hope to the hopeless in everything that we do, every day that we live. And we're holding one another to something that we believe is higher than this world, than this life, than this dispensation that we're in. So the essence of a kingdom ecosystem is a covenanted life together. If it's 5 of you, I've seen it be far more powerful than 500 that just attend something. Does that make sense?
Okay, you ready for Q&A? Yep. Okay, we're actually getting a lot of interesting questions.
Only read the interesting ones.
Yeah, well, there are some good ones too that I'll throw out there. Like, where do we get one of those? This is a personal question. The merch that you have for your bar, it's called Easy Tiger. You have the coolest merch. And I texted you, and I'm not mad about this, but you didn't get back to me and you didn't bring me a shirt. Okay, but Masterclass questions. How do you make the transition from seeing your job as just a job to something holy?
Well, I would say that first by recognizing that it is holy ground. Your daily work, the place that you carry out your habits and regular tasks is the very space that God wants to disciple you. And it's also the very space where if we can just tune our posture in a way to listen and see and look for the grizzly bear, you'll find him. And there's opportunity everywhere. And vocation and calling, like I said earlier, isn't just for the pastoral. We're pastors, we're ministers, we're missionaries, wherever we go.
Yeah, there has to be a significant paradigm shift in all of us. So if I took just this row here and I said, you 6, we're moving to Ethiopia together, to one of the hardest villages. What are your skills? We're going to go in and work, and we're going to bring blessing. Just like Paul said in Acts 20. He said, everywhere I go, I bring blessing. And through the work of my hands, I provide not only for myself, but also for my companions. He knew wherever he went, he was going to bring something there. So we're going to do that, but we're going in as missionaries. So at night or on the weekends or whenever, we're staying connected in this covenant that we made to each other. But we've been kind of clouded over with just get through your week, make your money, pay your bills, and then get to church on Sunday and try to live a good life. And that's okay. It really is. And I want you to know, if you're in that place, there's grace, and honestly, go for it. But what we're talking about is a missionary life. And we're kind of trying to call out the missionaries and say, if you want this is available, but you can't do it on your own. Even in Jesus's leadership, he didn't send people out on their own. He said, you got to go out in covenant. You got to go out with purpose, and you have to go out with strategy together. And then you begin to live that covenanted mission together.
And it's wonderful. There's nothing better. I mean, if you're in what feels like a dead-end job, I just would challenge you to begin to pray into it and think about it in the terms of it being your holy calling. There's an invitation in your job, I promise.
Okay. Sometimes it feels awkward to bring up Jesus in the workspace. What's the best way to open up that conversation with the unconvinced after they start to get a sense of the aroma that you're bringing?
So I want us to answer this differently. So wherever I go, you go a different way. But I would say don't bring him up. I love the challenge. I love the challenge of living a life that creates such curiosity that it's brought up to me. And it happens to me all the time. Right now, there's an old gym in our town. It's the only gym in our town where kids can play basketball, but it's so run down and it's so broken and slippery. And I wish I had a picture. I'd put it up here. We run a little basketball program out of there called Beyond Basketball. If you've ever seen the movie Hoosiers, it's older than that. Like the goals are wooden plywood. It's so terrible. And for the past year, I've been raising money. So quick plug if anybody wants to. I'm trying to raise about $15,000 to get the floors refinished, put new goals in, do things like that. I have no connection to the gym at all. I'm not on staff. I don't get anything from this. And we do stuff like this in our city all the time. And the other day I'm walking out and the assistant to the regional manager, no, I'm just kidding, it's an office joke, but the assistant to the executive director asked me, she just kind of point blank, she said, why are you doing this? because I'm up there like meeting with people, working with people, which I do not have time to do, and I have other stuff going on. I love those moments. So I would actually say don't bring Jesus up if it's awkward.
You'd say it's that aroma that draws them in.
Yeah. Yeah, give them something to smell.
Not physically, spiritually, especially in a gym.
Hashtag that, and you guys, if you could tag me, give them something to smell.
Oh, gosh. Lance, what direction just don't use that line, however you answer the...
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of different hats that I wear, and and maybe like a lot of you guys, I'd have to be kind of careful about what I talk about in the workspace. But I've found that people, just even yesterday, one of my employees said, "Hey, what are you going to Springfield for?" And I found myself a little nervous to tell them, because I didn't want to be like, "Oh man, I'm going to go talk at a church." I didn't want to out myself, but he knew. I don't know how he knew, but he knew. He said, "Hey man, are you speaking at like a Christian thing?" And we've never talked about a faith. So I think, to your point, people do start to smell it. And if we pray for it, if we ask for it, if we look for it, we host all of our employees. We get to know them really, really well. And it's just caught and taught over time. And I found that when the trust comes in, then there's a great space to talk about.
Can I just end this little part with a challenge? And this is just for whoever wants to receive it. If you're not creating that curiosity, maybe ask yourself why. Maybe just kind of pray, think, reflect. I think that Jesus, if we're here because he stirred us, let's look at him and realize that he created so much curiosity with his life, with his friendships, with his speech. And so I don't bring him up, don't bring him up. I actually don't think it matters at all. It's like Lance and I were talking about I love basketball. It's like Jesus basketball. No, I'm just kidding.
Burritos.
I love basketball. I love youth league, high school, college, NBA, overseas, G League. I love basketball. And pretty quickly, if you're in relationship or conversation...
He loves basketball so much, he made us drive to a basketball school here in town before we got here.
Yep. And I'm going to go there tomorrow and meet with the coach and talk about his program. I just love it. And pretty soon after you meet me, you're going to know two things about me within a certain amount of time, is that I'm pretty obsessed with Jesus, with my kids, and with basketball. There's no way I can't talk about it. It's not because I need to fit it in. I'm just obsessed with those things. So I think maybe challenge yourself just a little bit. Why is it that I'm almost never stirring the curiosity of others to ask me, what is it about you? And that thing I smell when you're around.
Okay, so remote jobs. A lot of people have remote jobs now. And I've gotten a few questions about this. How do you do this, whether it's social media life, if your job is remote and you're not around people a lot, how could you help your work as worship? How do you see your work?
Yeah, if you have a remote job, I really would love for you to go get our book. We have some here, and they're on Amazon, or I can just mail you one if you can't pay for one. But we talk about three kind of tenets of a kingdom ecosystem. One is intentional living, one is benevolent business, and one is justice works. And some people are rock stars and they do all three. They move to a really poor community to be a blessing there. They start a business and run it, and they're, saving the whales. But for most people that are raising kids, that are paying bills, trying to keep their head above water, they go, God, what can I offer? I work a remote job. I don't see anybody. And I would say, do something else. Find another outlet to spread the aroma of Christ.
Are you saying quit your job, or you're saying not quit your job?
No, I'm saying that...
Pickleball, basketball.
Got it.
I'm saying that if your job does not allow the opportunity for you to encounter other people, find another way to encounter other people while working that job. Like I said, go buy a $120 grill, go find a park in a lower income neighborhood and start cooking hot dogs on Sunday nights. You will be blown away at how many young people will come and ask you, why are you doing this? We always say in a kingdom ecosystem, there are no fatherless kids. There are no fatherless kids. Because there are always fathers present saying, come on, I got you. Let's go. What do you need? You hungry? Come on. So yeah, there's different ways. You know, my best friend in the world is a surgeon, and he tries to be an example of Christ in his field.
But most people aren't listening to him when he's talking.
No, he just honestly can't. He's like, nope. I got to focus on what I'm doing. And
they're
under anesthesia.
Under anesthesia.
Yeah, so you see what I'm saying. But this is about work, and your work matters. If you work a remote job and you're like, this is terrible, I don't encounter people, get another job. Sure, you're free to do that. I mean, if you're saying, I want to share good news in my work and I never see human beings, you might need to get another job. Or do something else. Have another outlet where you're spreading the aroma of Christ. I'll say this.
That's great.
We have another family we're super close with that they have a pretty hard special needs kid. Mm-hmm. And their home is such a place of sanctuary for them right now. They can't really do the whole intentional home thing where they're bringing people in and they're caring for people and they're hosting dinners. They need to get home and they got to like rest and look each other in the eyes and focus on the child that they've been given. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, of course, do that.
Yeah.
And so they find other outlets. Mm-hmm. That is the aroma of Christ, by the way, in their home, but it can't really be outreach with their home.
Yeah. Okay, we have a few more minutes. Anything you want to add to that before we go? Before we ask another question? Okay, a few people are saying they're looking for another job. They're praying, how do they know God's directing them towards a certain path? I feel like this is an age-old question that is the case with all transitions.
I believe that you are not holy just by the nature of what your work is. If that makes sense. So wherever you go, whatever it might be, it could be a call to holy living. And so your question, though, is
no, that's helpful. It is a paradigm shift, and it is helpful. Yeah.
Like, how do I know this job is what God's honoring? I would say that God can honor you in any job that you have. That's how I would answer that whatever it is that you find yourself doing, can be actually fulfilling and helpful. That's been in my
You guys
experience.
ever heard of a guy named Oswald Chambers? Anybody? He's an old dead guy that wrote a book called, he actually didn't write it. It's a collection of his journal entries called My Utmost for His Highest. And I remember, don't hold me to this, but I think it's around mid-March, like March 15th was the entry. And I read it when I was in college. And the summary of this journal entry was him saying to us, whoever was reading it, he was focusing on that psalm, that famous psalm, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Well, my whole life I had thought it was like this, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you what your heart desires. But the way that Oswald framed it for me and the way that I believe it is delight yourself in the Lord. And imagine a cup right here, and these are desires. He will give you the desires of your heart. Like he will give you the desires. And what Oswald says is, when that happens, do whatever you want. Just do whatever you want. The point is, don't worry about the job. Worry about delight. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you your desires, and just do what's in front of you. You're, in a sense, without disregarding purpose, calling, skill set, all that, hear me, just through that paradigm, your job doesn't matter. In that sense, of course your job matters. That's the whole point of this masterclass. But I would say, depending on your age, your responsibility, all that, go try multiple jobs.
So I have an example, a quick example. I have a lot of different jobs, and one of them I keep going, Lord, why am I doing this? It's a publishing company. And we just signed a deal with Tarzan, like Edgar Rice Burroughs' Lord of the Jungle. I know that sounds very strange, and we can talk about that later. But the writer that we're hiring to do this in our conversations continues to bring up spiritual matters. And so, like, I wasn't
Tarzan feels spiritual.
Tarzan does make you feel spiritual. So whatever it is, whatever field you work in, whether it's a hospitality space, whether it's accounting, I really do believe that God will show up if our posture is kind of looking and listening. And
then I promise you there will be times when some wacky experience will lead you to a specific job, and it's super cool, and definitely do that. But don't put too much pressure on yourself to feel like I gotta work this job or I'm gonna be out of the will of God. I really, really don't believe that that's true.
If you can say that last part again, because that's, I think, really helpful for the people asking about that.
Yeah, don't think that if you don't work this certain job or take this certain position that you're going to be out of the will of God. I always think about the story of Abraham and Lot. When Lot was like, which one do you want? And Abraham basically said, it doesn't matter because wherever I go, God's going to bless it anyways, because I delight myself in the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. How would someone, and we probably have time for 2 more questions, and to those people texting from Nixa, this one's from Nixa. How would someone whose table is in public education go about bringing the hope of Jesus to the unconvinced, students and adults, when the table could be flipped simply for saying Jesus' name?
Yeah, I mean, we said this earlier, but again, I would say don't say his name or say his name. But there are missionaries all over the world that can't say the name of Jesus. I've been with 12 of them in 12 different countries. And it's not unholy or cowardice to not say the name of Jesus. I would say it's far more like it's not the aroma of Christ to constantly say the name of Jesus, but not stir the curiosity in others of the love.
It'd be like the old Christian yellow pages where you just put the fish symbol and then you call it Christian, right? Like that feels a little thin, but when it's in the way that we talk to our students, love our students, affirm them, go to their games, whatever it might be, I think we can display.
And can I say, I know we're sort of talking out of both sides of our mouth sometimes. I don't mean to be doing that, but if you feel a deep unction to say the name of Jesus to a young person and you know you're going to lose your job for doing it, do it. Be brave and do it. I'm just saying it's very clear. Jesus told people, don't tell others about me. So we know just from that ethic, it's not unholy to hold off on saying his name. Let your life stir such curiosity, your love for your students, your honor for your administration. When all the other teachers are sitting in the teacher's lounge and just talking crap about everything, and your honor and your posture and your virtue in those moments, let it stir so much curiosity. But it's not because you're proving something or legalistically holding to some statute. It's because you're covenanted with other people on mission to do something so significant and so unique in your city that you know I can't let these guys down because I'm going to see them tomorrow night and we're praying together about what's going on in our school, and we got to stay focused on the mission that we're covenanted to.
Anything else? I'm going to ask a weird question to end it, but it's a legit question. When it comes to AI, how should we be thinking about work in the, let me read it the way it is. Hold on. Should we be looking at new jobs in light of AI advancements? Now, that doesn't seem like a Jesus question. Maybe it's not, but a lot of people are asking it.
Really? A lot of people
in the world are asking it,
Gotcha.
but I'm just going to throw it out there. It's a weird question to end it with.
Well, I'd love to share my thoughts on AI.
Okay,
but
Lance,
we're going to
stop there.
Yeah.
No, I think, hey, all these questions are good questions. I have like 25 texts that are unread right now. Will you just share with people, you talked about the banquet and how Luke 14, Jesus inviting people in and the table you're at is holy. How could people continue to follow what you're doing? We'll send out a digital resource kit this week to everyone who registered. So I'll get with you guys with some of those resources.
Yeah.
But how could they follow? Or if you're like, hey, listen to this podcast, read this book. These are helpful resources.
Yep. And this gets back to the kind of opening of the continued conversation. So we both, so I sit on the Brave Cities team with Taylor. So bravecities.com is a website you can go to. You can sign up for our newsletter. And then I also own the development company, which is called Banquet, but it's projectbanquet.com. There's an email there as well. And we, in both those groups, very much desire to walk this out with people and figure it out. We're open to conversation, to phone calls, to meetings. Just send us a message. We'd love to continue the conversation.
Cool. Anything on that, Taylor? Any recommended resources that you're like, this helps with the paradigm shift if you're trying to figure out if the work you do matters?
I mean, this, I have to say it, but I would get together in groups and read the book Brave Cities and see if you can stir one another up. There's a lot of resources you can get on our email list, and we can send you, YouTube videos and, paradigm shifting talks and more literature on all of this. But I think the greatest resource you have in the world is each other. And if you can connect together, just a few of you, in a mission and a passion and an unction, then you're going to see amazing things happen in your little kind of cranny of your city.
I would add, Parker Palmer has a great book called Let Your Life Speak. And that's a great resource if you haven't.
We'll make sure that that's in the email. Can you all give them a round of applause for being here?
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.